Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are making Phyrexian Dreadnoughts, and we're planning to do that with Dress Downs, Stifles and Mycosynth Gardens. So this is a mono-blue Phyrexian Dreadnought deck, but it's more of a tempo deck. So we've got a load of cards to knock our opponent off balance, things like Dazes, Force of Wheels, Brazen Borrower to bounce anything scary that gets into play, as well as a couple of Minor Missteps. So that's kind of our sort of plan: make the Dreadnought, ride it for a few turns till our opponent is dead. Now, if that doesn't work, we then have a backup plan of just sticking a massive dragon into play with Murktide Regent and smashing our opponent's face with it, which is a pretty tried and tested way of winning games of Legacy right now. A few things with the way we've built this deck that are interesting to me is we have 8 colourless lands. I didn't think we could really squeeze in any more, even though we are mono blue. I just didn't think that was something we could really achieve, because we need to have an island in play for things like Daze. We need to be able to cast quite a lot of blue spells, so I figured we could have 8. So we got 3 Wastelands, 3 Sagas to find our Phyrexian Dreadnoughts, and sometimes we might want to use the making constructs thing, but obviously making constructs is pretty bad with Dress Down. So we have to sort of pick our spot when we're using that. And then when this pops, we can then get ourselves a Shadowspear or a Soul Guide Lantern, or more likely a Dreadnought, which is what it's there for. We also have an Aether Spellbomb, because we don't really have removal, so more ways of removing stuff from play is going to be useful. Our mana base, aside from that, is just fetches and islands, including 1 Mystic Sanctuary, because we can hopefully just shoot for that when we need it and get something clutch to buy us that extra turn, whether that's a Force of Will or whatever. That's pretty much the deck. We'll just talk about the this slip out the back as well. So what you can do with this card is, if you play a Phyrexian Dreadnought with its trigger on the stack, you can phase it out so it's not in play to be sacrificed. So you get to ignore the trigger, then it comes back, and then you've got a 13-13 instead of a 12-12. So you get a slightly bigger Dreadnought and protect it. And this can also protect your creatures just generally from removal. And it pumps them. So it's got some pretty useful text on. Other than that, just the things you'd expect. Brainstorms, Ponders to help sort of grease the wheels a little bit. And, you know, Daze, Force of Will, we already mentioned that. Pretty streamlined, pretty tempo-centric. We're not going to necessarily win any games that go super long, but we have a little bit of ability to sort of thread the needle and just deploy some large threats, really. Sideboard-wise, we have some bits and pieces here. So we have a Pithing Needle, which is an Urza Saga target, which is quite handy. We have a Grafdigger's Cage, which can stop elves and reanimator, and it's another thing that we can get with our Urza Saga. We have 2 Torpor Orb. So these, when they're good against our opponent, like elf players and stuff like that, and initiative, they also empower our Phyrexian Dreadnought. So we kind of get a boost to our main plan by having Torpor Orb. But it's not good enough to have on its own in the deck, in my opinion. But it can be a good sideboard card. That's kind of where we're going with that. We have a couple of Null Rods, because sometimes we're going to have to mess with our opponent with making loads of artifacts. Mainly things like Storm decks, but also 8-cast. We also have an Energy Flux to really smash down some of the artifact people. Now, obviously we have Phyrexian Dreadnought in our deck, but we can pay 2 and keep bashing with our 1 big guy. But when this is affecting our opponent, it's going to be absolutely backbreaking, blowing up all their mana sources and everything. So it's just going to be, it might not seem like the best synergy, but it's just going to be so much more powerful against our opponent than us that we can pretty much ignore this and just pay the 2 when it's necessary. We have a couple of Misstep and a couple of Hydroblast for alternative counters, depending on what the matchups are. And we have a couple of Force of Negation again for those quick combo decks. The other card that you may have noticed here is Gilded Drake. So if our opponent's going to be show and telling stuff in, we can put in a Gilded Drake and steal their big scary guy. That seems fine to me. And against some other matchups, we maybe just want to steal things like a Seasoned Dungeoneer. It might be good enough. And if we play this and then bounce it with Brazen Borrower or Aether Spellbomb, we get to play it again. So that's pretty cool. One of the things that could be in this deck that isn't is a subtlety or 2. But let's face it, when we're trying to make Phyrexian Dreadnoughts, the last thing we are is subtle. Alright, I think that'll do for now. So let me just do a quick plug. Like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing and really help my channel out, so please do them. Now let's play Legacy with a deck that I guess we're either calling Mycosynth Dreadnought or Phyrexian Gardens. One of the two. I'll see what I decide by the time I upload it. Alright, let's play some Legacy. We're on the play for round 1. I don't think this is what I would describe as a keeper, to be honest. I think we have to mulligan this one. A bit too many dreadnoughts. This is fine. I think we can keep this one. We're probably throwing back one of our Brainstorms, I think, here. And we can just lead out on an island here. And we've got Brainstorm available if we need it. We've got Force of Will. We've got Daze. We have options. Agadeem. This could mean something like Oops or Spells. I think we're just going to Wasteland them here. So we're holding up Stifle, Brainstorm, Daze, and Force of Will here. So we have a lot of options of what we can mess our opponent with. A Grief. I'm going to... Do I want to Stifle that trigger? We have to Stifle the right one, I guess. So let's Stifle the one that makes us discard here. This means we can still Brainstorm and Daze. So we can Brainstorm our turn and then Daze. So what do they exile for this? Another Grief. Let's cast a Brainstorm. We're looking for a land. We found a land. Okay, so the slip out the back isn't doing anything for us. Although it does pitch nicely to a Force of Will. But I think we're just going to put this on top. And then the Brainstorm. And then we'll play this island out and pass. So we will need a threat at some point. So we have 2 Dazes and a Force of Will all live this turn. So if our opponent is an Oops or Spells deck, which it kind of feels like they might be. Oh! They're mono black Oops. Okay. Now I know what's going on. I played this deck once. There's a Mox. There's a Dark Ritual. Sure. There's an Undercity Informer. I think we will hit this, pitching. Do you want a Daze or a Dress Down? I need to go here. I think a Daze. We're going to need the Dress Down to plow through the cards in our hands. On top of our library. Our opponent's got 2 cards left. And we do have a Daze available. So we can try and Brainstorm now to hit a land. Or we can Dress Down to cantrip through that one card that we know is there. I think we're just going to Brainstorm. See if we can hit a land. Okay. So you don't want to slip out the back. And this Wasteland isn't really doing anything for us right now. So we'll chuck those 2 back. Put this land into play and pass the turn. If our opponent plays a land that we might want to Wasteland, we can always do that because we put that one on top of our library, if I remember rightly, which is what I meant to do at the very least. So we can hard cast a Daze, we can cast a Dress Down. Okay, I think we're just going to crack this end of turn, go and get ourselves a basic island. So our next fetch land gets us a Mystic Sanctuary if we want it, which is pretty good. And then we can do the whole Daze rebuying it if we need to. Okay, so a Brazen Borrower. That can beat down if necessary. We might just be in a situation where we want to play this to beat down so that we've got a clock. Because obviously, given enough time, our opponent will assemble their combo again. A Dark Ritual, sure. If they play a Balustrade Spy, we can Dress Down in response. This is going to be pretty annoying for our opponent. So the Balustrade Spy will come in with no abilities. So we could have just Dazed there instead, but we'd rather save the Daze, which looks like it's going to be pretty good from here on out, and cycle a card. An Urza Saga. Okay. So we found our win condition. We can take some hits off the Balustrade Spy. It's not going to be a problem for us. We have a Dress Down for another Balustrade Spy, but we're ideally trying to keep this for the Dreadnought. Just take this. I think we just pass here. So we can just make a load of guys now, right? So we can go 2 to make this, and then we can put the Stifle on top and draw that, and then we'll have 2 mana plus the Stifle here. So we can just have lots and lots of guys and end the game really quickly, or we can put Force of Will on top of our library just to give us a safety net, which is probably what we're going to do here. An Agadeem. Sure. So I think we just take the damage here. And then in the end step, I think we probably do just want a Force of Will here. Let's crack this for a Mystic Sanctuary. Let's get back our Force of Will. Just a bit of protection here. And we'll cast this Dress Down. We can bounce our Mystic Sanctuary with a Daze at some point as well if we need to. So we draw that Force of Will we put on top. Now we get to our draw step and then our main phase. Get a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Winning game 1 against this is pretty nice if we can get that done. Right, so we'll tap this for a mana. We'll go and get a Phyrexian Dreadnought. I think we're casting a Ponder here. Always using the Mystic Sanctuary mana if possible. Stifle is a pretty good one in this matchup, so I'd very much like to have that. So we'll put these 2 on top of our library. And then the Stifle. And then I think we pass the turn. The Shield Sphere does actually soak up a reasonable chunk of damage here. But we have a Stifle for a Undercity Informer interaction, as well as a bunch of cards here. And this can turn sideways twice and put 24 damage at them. So it's a 3-turn clock if they put bodies in the way. Okay, they're scooping because they know we've got Force of Will in hand. They don't really have a lot going on there. Right, mono black oops. So, what is good here? Torpor Orb shuts down their combo. Grafdigger Cage shuts down their combo. Null Rod shuts down a whole bunch of their things. Force of Negation has some pretty useful text here. Minor Missteps has pretty useful text here. We can counter some of their bits and pieces. Pithing Needle does stuff. So we have a lot of things that do stuff. I don't think we want Borrowers here. That's an easy cut. Because we're bringing in Torpor Orbs, we can probably bring out something like Slip Out the Back. The Aether Spellbomb's not really going to help us here. The Shadowspear is probably a little bit redundant. And we've got 4 more cuts to find. I think we have to keep in all of our counter magic here. So we're probably looking at cutting the Ponders, because we just have good cards in our deck, so we don't need to dig for them as much. This does mean we're going to have less cards in our bin for Murktide, so maybe we'll swap 1 and 1 like that. Soulguide Lantern and Null Rod is a bit of a nombo, but Soulguide Lantern can stop their combo on its own. Maybe we don't need the Null Rods, maybe they're pushing it a little bit, but it's going to be so hard for them to get the mana with a Null Rod in play. I think it's worth keeping them. Alright, let's try like this. We have to have a Force of Will in our opening hand, otherwise we lose the game. So what looks like a pretty good hand is completely unplayable in this matchup. Now we might just get discarded to Oblivion, but we just mulligan here. Minor Misstep and Daze. No blue mana though, so it's the mulligan. Okay, we have a force effect. So 2 of these cards have got to go. Come to play tap land, I don't want. Spare dress down, I don't want. Okay, let's see if our opponent can kill us this turn. There's a Mox Opal. I think we let that one ride. Shield Sphere, sure. A Lotus Petal. This is the one we counterspell here. Interesting. If we counterspell this, they don't have Metalcraft. I think we counterspell this one. And we're probably getting rid of the dress down, because the Daze is going to be useful next turn. So Mox Opal doesn't make mana on its own, which is why I didn't counter it, whereas the other one would have... Oh, okay, so I think we need to play... I think we just crack this right away and just get ourselves a basic island. So we need to have the Daze up here, but we can play the Pithing Needle at the same time. So this is going to name Undercity Informer. So that shuts down the cheaper one, which means our Daze is going to be good against the more expensive one. Chrome Mox. Do I think our opponent... I think we just Daze this one and just try and get our opponent on mana here. Okay, so they paid with a Simian Spirit Guide. I wasn't expecting Spirit Guides, to be honest. I don't think the build I played had Spirit Guides. So now they have 2 mana. Now they have 4 mana. Now they have Goblin Charbelcher. Okay, so they got the Goblin Charbelcher pivot. Interesting. So we need to stop our opponent from reaching 3 mana. So a Wasteland would be good here. That is not a Wasteland. I think we have to play out our island so we can at least represent a counterspell here. Does our opponent have another mana source? No. Okay. I think we want our Urza Saga ticking down here. I think we're going to lose this game. We can draw a Stifle and stifle a Charbelcher activation. Force of Will is a little bit late, unfortunately. So we're going to make a token, so we're at least going to have some pressure. They have a Lotus Petal. Okay. They're waiting for us to make this. We have to hold up the Stifle, at least pretend that we've got a Stifle. Sure, let's see our opponent's deck, I guess. So what have they boarded here? They've boarded out of their regular combo and just purely into Belcher. Okay. Does that impact how we want to play this game? I don't think so. I think we just name something different with Pithing Needle here, because they could board back into their combo. I think being on the play with our 4 minor missteps is going to be incredibly good, though. This hand is what I would describe as a snap keep. We have 3 pieces of turn 1 interaction here. We have a Wasteland as well to follow up with. So let's just crack this now and get a basic island, because that's our jam. So we've got Force of Negation, Minor Misstep, and Daze available. So let's see what our opponent plays out here. Any mana thing. Okay, so we have a we have an Agadine that we can hit. Are we supposed to hit this one? I don't think we hit this one. I think we save this. Save this Minor Misstep. A Grief. Oof, we're going to get punished pretty hard here, aren't we? I think this one has to hit us, unfortunately. We could maybe make them pay 1, but I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. Because we have so many pieces of interaction, I think we're okay. We took the Misstep. Interesting. Culling the Weak. I think this one has to get a Force of Negation here. And we have choices here. I think we have to pitch the Murktide for now. We'll worry about winning the game later. We need to not die here. This gives them the mana to cast either Charbelcher or the other lad, one of the guys that mills them. And we can't really let them have either of those. I think we are just wastelanding here. This makes our days much better. We do have another land as well to follow up with, so... Alright, we got a Mycosynth Gardens and a Grafdigger's Cage. Do I want the Grafdigger's Cage now? I don't think that's where we're going with this game right now. I think we'll hold up and potentially dress down end of turn. But maybe we're supposed to wait rather than just dig. If our opponent doesn't do anything, I think we can probably wait. We don't know which combo our opponent is on. Soul Guide Lantern here is quite nice though. I think we will cast the Soul Guide Lantern here. Get rid of this Grief in case they have a Reanimate in their deck, which is possible. We could play out this Grafdigger's Cage to stop the other combo, but we already have the Soul Guide Lantern checking that. So I think we just cycle the Soul Guide Lantern if our opponent doesn't do anything, but we still have the Daze up. Right, let's draw a card. Okay, so we have a plan. We have plans for sure. We pass a turn and then we do an end step, dress down, untap, play Dreadnought. If we draw a land, we can make 2 Dreadnoughts and kill our opponent. Let's make a dress down. Just draw a card. Another dress down. Would have liked to have seen a land there, truth be told. We'll play out this Dreadnought. We've got Stifle and Daze available to us. So we can Stifle a Charbelcher activation, but we kind of have to be careful how we do that because we'll be bouncing our land and floating, and if they get a situation where they can just go to their next phase and let our mana fall off, we're not going to be able to Stifle. So, a bit tricky. Grief. Okay, I think the play here is to Stifle the Grief activation. The Grief ability here. Stifle this trigger. That way we still have the Daze available. So if our opponent casts anything, we Daze it, I think, here. A Chromox. I think we Daze that one. Now if they pay, that's the Lotus Petal gone, which is going to make Metalcraft harder if they've got Mox Opals. But this is a permanent mana source. We didn't really want our opponent to have that. I really wish we'd have drawn an island on our last turn. Another Stifle, though, is not bad. Our opponent's got 1 turn to beat us here. So you've got Stifle and Daze and potentially Dress Down, although I don't think Dress Down is going to be relevant. Another one of these. This is a little bit tough. Let me float the blue. Bounce this. We just simply can't allow our opponent to have more mana here. And every time we've counted the other mana things, they've passed the turn. Right, so countering the mana was enough. We just had a little chat with our opponent, who was a very nice and friendly human being. And we are 1-0. So, not a bad start to the old MyCosynth Dreadnought deck. Let's go to round 2. Okay, we're on the play. We have a little bit of interaction. We do have a Dreadnought that we can make, and there's a Saga to follow up with, so I think this is a keep. We're just going to fetch Island because we're always going to do that, and we can play around Stifles and whatever here. Because we don't have to worry about our land getting wastelanded, we're pretty happy just to get this out. Let's see what our opponent goes for. A Polluted Delta. A Dress Down. I think we just play out the Saga here. And maybe go for a double Dreadnought turn in a couple of turns. So we can play the Dress Down in a turn, get the Dreadnought from this and the Dreadnought from this. Would like a bit more business though. Some sort of counter-spelly type goodness. In a pinch we can obviously cycle the Dress Down for a counter spell, but let's pause on this for a second so think about Stifle and then say okay. Okay, so we're looking at a Death Shadowy type deck here. A Baleful Strix. Sure, we don't care about that. Our guys have trample, and we're going to have a lot of them. It's back to us. Okay. So we just play this one out. We'll crack it now. Playing around potential stifles from our opponents. I think we can play out an Aether Spellbomb if we want to. But if we have to misstep, that means we can't do the dress down. So I think we just hold up dress down and minor misstep. And then we make some large creatures. A ponder. I think that's okay. I don't think that's where we fight with our minor misstep. Something like a Thoughtseize would be worth fighting over. Or what else would we fight over? If they get their life total low enough for a Death Shadow, we can fight with that one. But on our next turn, we're hoping to put 2 Phyrexian Dreadnoughts into play. They can be snuffed out, unfortunately, which I have to imagine is in our opponent's deck. Okay, a basic island. Another ponder. I think we let that one go. They did shuffle off their first ponder. They did not shuffle off the second. Okay. What are you doing to us, opponent? Dressing down here is very, very awkward. We can't... yeah. I think we just have to let this one go. And they can take the dress down from us, or they can take the misstep. We have the misstep, which can cover the reanimate, if that's where they're going with this. But if they do reanimate this... So they take our... They can take our misstep and then reanimate it and take our dress down. So that would be a pretty bad situation for us. I think if that happens, we make a token with our Urza Saga. Okay, they took the misstep. Not a fan of where this is going to lead. So there's the reanimate. So we could dress down to try and spike an answer. I think this ends up just being better card value for us. This way we at least get to draw another card. Because we're going to lose a dress down anyway. We may as well stop the grief from taking it and get a card. Going to be tough to come back from the old double grief turn though. Like a Phyrexian Dreadnought is pretty good at coming back from that though. And we do have the Mycosynth Gardens that we can make a Dreadnought with. Okay. Our opponent is Force of Will, pitching a Daze. Okay, so they're going to get their guy in, who's now going to hit another one of our things. Our opponent has done a 2-for-1, and then another 2-for-1. But we're still behind here. Gonna be tough. We're going to take one from this. Unless we draw a Stifle or something, we're probably just making another Saga token here. Yep, okay. Let's make a token. It's not very exciting. So we can get a Shadowspear and just try and race that way. Or we can get Soulguide Lantern and stop Murktide, which I think is more pressing right now. Let's get rid of the Force of Will so they can't put it back on top. And then we can play out our Mycosynth Gardens, play our Aether Spellbomb. They can daze this, I guess. They did not daze it. So we have a 3-3 at least. And we can Phyrexian Dreadnought next turn. Okay, a Brainstorm is a pretty good one. They got Fetch Land to make it a perfect Brainstorm. A Death's Shadow. Sure. So this is only a 1-1 right now, but they have the ability to give it +3. So it's a 4-4. So we can't block either of these because this has Menace, this has Flying. Attacking into the Death's Shadow is not a great proposition either. But let's see how this goes. Okay, so we don't have enough islands to make this good, which is annoying. So if we do this, we have to put down our Minor Misstep. I think that's okay. Let's play this guy. Okay, so now we get a choice of sacrificing creatures. So we're going to sacrifice the tapped one and keep the untapped one. And then I think we just have to play this one out, as bad as that is. And then I don't think we attack here. We have double blocks on the grief. If we need it, we can bounce something out of the way to let 12 trample go through. They're going to have to put 2 things behind the Dreadnought because of our Aether Spellbomb in play. So they're drawing a fresh one off the top now. The lower they go, the worse this is for them. Unless they find an answer to our Dreadnought, then we're just dead, I think. But Dreadnought's a good card in terms of combat stats, that's for sure. A 12-12 Trampler. They shuffled off their Ponder. Okay, so they don't have an answer in hand, otherwise I think they'd take a little bit longer on that Ponder. I don't think you're supposed to play that Fetch Land out, unless you're planning on hard casting a Snuff Out. But I don't think you are when you have a Death Shadow. Ah, there's a Snuff Out, sure. So I think they shuffled and then found that. Okay. How do we block this turn? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're definitely dead if we don't... We're definitely dead next turn if we don't block. So I think we have to just chump block here. Or do we think we... How are we going to make 2 artifacts? Is there a way we can make 2 artifacts? I don't think there is a way we can... I think we have to block here. I'm just trying to think. I guess we could draw Shadowspear as an out here. If we draw Shadowspear, that's lethal. So I think we try and draw Shadowspear. Oh, what am I doing? They've got a fetch land. Bleh. What am I doing? Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure we're dead then. I was just thinking of lines where we could possibly win the game. I think if we chump block there, we're just not winning the game. So, what do I want for this one? It's a little tough. I think maybe we're supposed to board out of our 2-for-1s because they're already going to be smashing us resource-wise. Grafdigger's Cage stops them reanimating things. It does stop our Phyrexian Dreadnought coming out of our library though, which is a little bit of a nombo. I think we want these 2 missteps and be a bit more aggressive about using them. And then where are we going? We have Torpor Orb. I think Torpor Orb is okay here. I think that's about the best it's getting. Yep, sure. So our opponent is kind of doing a very similar thing to what we're doing. Our creatures are bigger, but their deck has better cards in because they've got access to 2 colours, so they are just making some big yachts. What does this do? This Mental Misstep's their first play, unless they have stupid grief. We have 2 Dreadnoughts, we can shuffle them away. I think this is a keeper. We lead out on... Okay, our opponent's mulligan to 6, which is not the worst for us. I think we're going to struggle in this matchup, generally speaking. But a Phyrexian Dreadnought, if it comes through, like as we saw, they had to have the snuff out or they lose there. So let's just start with an island, at least give them the fear of Stifle. Are we getting griefed? Let's find out. If it's Thoughtseize, we can misstep this. We don't really want them to take our Brainstorm here. Let's play this out because we want to be able to Brainstorm shuffle. We'll see what our opponent does. A Brainstorm. We're going to Brainstorm response. Okay, so this plan looks pretty strong, truth be told. So I think we're putting back a Spellbomb and we're putting back one of these missteps. And I think we crack this. I think we're just going to aggressively misstep here and stop our opponent's development this turn. A Wasteland. Not going to have a lot of luck with the Wasteland, apart from the fact that we have a thing that you are going to have luck with there. But I guess we just don't play the Saga here because it's just going to get immediately Wastelanded. We just... Our opponent's end step, we're going to dress down and then make 2 Dreadnoughts. Looks like hitting that Brainstorm was pretty good. Let's cast this at end of turn. I imagine if they've got some interaction to counter this, they will. Oh, no. Get to draw a card as well. Oh, and a Daze. It's pretty nice. All right. Are you going to Wasteland it in response to the trigger? You should. Unless you're saving that Wasteland for mana purposes. That's the only reason you wouldn't do it there. Yep. Okay. So... I'm going to stifle this. I would like a Phyrexian Dreadnought, please. I would like a Phyrexian Dreadnought, please. We have 24 power. That's a lot of power. And we can follow it up with the Saga tokens as well. We have a Daze to protect if they have something like... Well, Powder Cake's not even good enough here because these are one mana cost instead of 0. So... A Wasteland. Are we going to lose our Urza Saga this time? A Snuff Out. Sure. So this is going to turn off fetch lands unless they can kill this Dreadnought. So we're not going to get any Saga tokens. Alright. I think we Brainstorm here. I like the Misstep. Don't particularly want the Dreadnought here though. So this goes on top. And then it's probably the Borrower. And we just play out this horrible Sanctuary. Okay, our opponent can't use fetch lands. We can counter a Death Shadow. They can't snuff our guy out. Let's misstep this. Nice. Okay, that was pretty potent. Let's see if we can do it again. I think the missteps just stifling their development was really useful there. Let's just roll it back up again. This hand certainly plays magic. But I don't want to keep the Mystic Sanctuary. It feels so bad here. I guess the hope is that we Brainstorm into a land. I guess we keep it on the power of Brainstorm. We could definitely get punished here. So we're hoping our opponent starts with a Ponder rather than a Thoughtseize. So they Thoughtseize. Okay, they're going to Thoughtseize and take our Brainstorm here. Not a fan of that. They could take our Stifle, but I think they're probably going to take our Brainstorm, which is not great for us. We were relying on our Brainstorm to do a lot of work here. We want this game to be one where we trade a bunch of resources and slam a Murktide and sort of close the door with that maybe, because we're going to be putting a lot of cards into our graveyard this game. They took the Stifle. Interesting. Just going to get basic island and pass the turn. So we've got a counter spell for any 1-drop, and if they go 2-drop, we can Daze it. There's a Wasteland. Doesn't impact us. Obviously, this Mystic Sanctuary is going to look pretty bad. A Thoughtseize. So I think this is a... Let's misstep this. They're going to Daze this, are they? I could fire off 2 Dazes. Oh, no, I can't fire off 2 Dazes. I've only got 1 land. Sure. So they've kind of set themselves back here. But if they're going for Death Shadow, this means that they're going to have a lot less life to work with. Or a lot, yeah. Which is a good thing for them. So Slip Out the Back might be what's going here, because it's the weird card, and people like to get rid of weird card. This, basically, if they have an answer for Phyrexian Dreadnought, they're more likely to take one of these other cards. Again, they should have taken Brainstorm instead of Stifle first time around. But here we are. So our opponent's got 1 card that we know in hand, which is the Watery Grave, so just try and keep that in my mind. They did take the Brainstorm this time. Address down. So we can play the Sanctuary out just to get round the Wasteland, which sounds pretty bad. But it makes our Daze better. So I think we do play out this Mystic Sanctuary and just say, if you want to Wasteland this, you're not going to be able to play around Daze. And if they do, we can always bounce our Mystic Sanctuary. Let's Daze this. Bouncing our Mystic Sanctuary. Daze this. Oh, we're supposed to tap for 1 in case they Daze back. Oh no. Is that going to cost us? No. Okay. That was a bit of a punt there, but we weren't punished. Okay, a Ponder. That's what we want to see. A Wasteland of our very own. I like a Soul Guide Lantern as well here because it shuts off our opponent's ability to make a Murktide next turn. So I think we are probably putting Soul Guide on top than the Wasteland, because Wasteland is something they can't. But we're going to have to draw through that island, aren't we? I suppose we don't know if our opponent has more mana, actually. They might have a Wasteland kicking on. Another land kicking up. If they don't have a land and we get to Wasteland, then I think we're in a good spot. This is the crucial turn of the game, I think. If our opponent drops a threat, then I think we lose. If our opponent drops a land, then we're not in great shape either. If they do both, yeah, doing both is not great for us. Yeah, we kind of took our chances a little bit there. So we know the top card of our library. Our Soul Guide Lantern is 1 card too late here. How much damage do we think we can take? We can Soul Guide Lantern here, or we can Dress Down and maybe draw into our guy. But if we draw into our guy, we've got to Slip Out the Back anyway, because we know the island is on top. So I think we are playing out the Soul Guide Lantern this turn. And we're probably going to end up cycling it. Doesn't matter which one of these. Let's take Thoughtseize. I think we have to cycle this in the hopes of drawing into a Dreadnought soon. Another Wasteland, sure. So if we cycle like this, they're probably going to Wasteland our Wasteland. It's annoying, but fine. Plague Engineer. That's a weird card to play there. Why is that in their deck? Should I take the hit for 5 here? So we're going to get our Wasteland, I imagine. No. Okay. Our Mystic Sanctuary will come in untapped when the time comes. 5, 6, 7. Yep, I think we have to play our Dress Down, end step, and try and draw into the Dreadnought. Dress Down does make Death Shadow a 13/13 briefly, so we have to be pretty cagey about how we play that one. What are they doing? They're just making their shadow bigger. So this is 10. So we can't use this to dig, because if we do, our opponent is going to blow us up with something. So our opponent is representing a hard cast Force of Will here. Okay, they're not doing that. Plague Engineer. Like, I don't care. I think we're going to dress down using our Wasteland just in case we draw a Brainstorm and feel like popping it off end of turn, because we have to have a really good turn next turn and we don't necessarily have the time to mess around with Brainstorming on our turn. Yep, so there's the Wasteland on our Wasteland, like we thought would happen earlier. Draw a card. Okay, that's not a great one. A Wasteland, that's also not a great one. We're facing down lethal damage here. We're dead. Alright. So that game was kind of close in a lot of ways. Like, the round we smashed them, we really smashed them. This round, there was one pivotal turn where it kind of went either way, and it went the bad way for us. So, unfortunate, but I thought the deck did alright for itself, considering our opponent's doing a very similar thing, but in a lot of ways, better. Alright, let's go on to the third round. We're on the play for round 3. What do we have? We have a Daze, an Urza Saga, so we can play an Urza Saga game with a counter spell. Our opponent is a Yorion deck, so we're probably going to have time to settle into this one. I think we mulligan here. Okay, this one looks better. So we can keep this. We get rid of one of our Dreadnoughts, and we start off with this and this, and play this island. I think we'll just get this Soulguide Lantern down now because we're not going to have a chance to get it down later, and this can shut off a bunch of things. So it can shut off, if our opponent is a Yorion Breakfast deck, it can shut off their graveyard. If it's a Life from the Loam deck, it can shut that off. If they're just Death and Taxes, it won't do anything. Death and Taxes might be a tough sell. Let's see how we do. Let's play this one out. Let's play a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Our opponent might not be... so let's cast this, target this guy. Our opponent might not be Death and Taxes. They might just have snow-covered plains in like one of these 4-color Yorion builds. Can I have a 13-13, please? We have a very ghostly-looking 13-13. Immune to Prismatic Ending this turn as well, which is nice. Arishadan Port. Sure, so this does look like Death and Taxes. So our guys come back in. We're getting ported here. We're going to draw a card because our opponent is not going to be doing much with their graveyard. Force of Will. That's a nice one. I think we are on Pondering first. Just need to find as much protection as possible. We don't really want all of these cards, but we are shuffling the Dreadnought away next turn. So I guess we put this on top, and this on top. Play our Saga out. Go to attacks. We just have to survive this one turn without our opponent killing our guy. We have a Force of Will and a Daze. So we have to Force of Will, pitch to Force of Will if they try and kill our guy. And we have a Daze back up. A Skyclave Apparition. Let's bounce our land and try and Daze this. So we have Force of Will for a potential Solitude. Put it on stack. This one will add some mana. And then we're going to go find something. Guess it's Aether Spellbomb. Solitude. Let's draw a card first. Let's Force of Will this. Do you have another one? They do not have another one. The big boy got there. Okay, so this is a matchup where Torpor Orb seems pretty good. Pithing Needle also has some useful text, I would say. We saw Touch of the Spirit Realm from our opponent, which is an interesting, slightly unusual one there. The Missteps can counter some of their things. Things like swords, for example. Which I imagine swords and Prismatic Ending are going to be pretty high on their list of things to bring in. How useful do I think Stifle's going to be? I think Stifle's going to be pretty good here. How useful is Slip Out the Back going to be? I don't know. Soulguide Lantern is going to be useless. I think we can agree on that one. Bouncing things is useful. Daze has diminishing returns on the draw. For boarding in Torpor Orbs, we'd probably board out, Slip Out the Backs. And then Aether Spellbomb is fine. What are we looking at here? Maybe it's just a couple of days here. Seems fine. We can board in things like Gilded Drake, but if we're boarding in Torpor Orb, that's pretty big on the Nombo stakes. Null Rod is an option as well, but I think we're better off just bouncing things with Borrower. So we have Island Ponder. I'll keep an Island Ponder. We've got enough mana to make our way into the game nicely. We've got an emergency button if something goes horribly wrong here. A Mother of Runes. I don't think we care about that. We're just going to trample over it. Like, I'd misstep it if we had a misstep, but we don't. So, let's ponder. Dress down, pretty good here. Stifle, also pretty good here. Murktide Regent, again, pretty useful. I think we'll keep all of these. Should have drawn the Stifle instead to pitch to the Force, but we're probably pitching Force to Force if it comes to it. A Rishadan Port. Spirit of the Labyrinth. Sure, that's not going to impact what we're doing with our dress down. So we're going to be dress downing this turn. I guess it doesn't really matter what we do with the dress down actually, because it'll cancel out the Spirit of the Labyrinth's abilities. Sure, I can take 3 here. Let's draw this Murktide off top of our deck. We go to our upkeep, they're going to Rishadan Port one of our islands. A Minor Misstep, that's a pretty good one. So we're going to crack this now, just get a basic island. Deploy the big guy. We have a lot of protection for this, and we also have a follow-up Murktide. Now, we don't have enough cards in the graveyard for a Murktide just yet, but we're getting there. This guy is also colourless, so Mother of Runes looks pretty bad against it. Path to Exile. I think this is worth misstepping. Can't imagine they have the ability to play 2 removal spells this turn. A Solitude. We'll pitch this Stifle. We've got another Force of Will if we need it. Put Yorion into hand, sure. Or you're going to hate this opponent. Okay, I think our opponent was pretty justifiably pissed off with our hand there. It was pretty nuts. Alright, so we got a second win there and felt pretty good. 12-12s. Don't give your opponent a lot of time to answer it. Alright, let's go on to round 4. This opening hand has a Mystic Sanctuary, which I don't like. It has 2 Phyrexian Dreadnoughts, not a big fan of. Has a Shadowspear, also not a fan of. Pretty straightforward mulligan to me. Island Ponder, that's more like it. How many lands do we want to keep in our opening hand? Do we want this Aether Spellbomb? I think I just keep Dazes and Ponder lands. I think that's fine. Okay. Opponent let out on a Volcanic. So they're using red removal. We're going to be in a reasonable spot here. So I like all of these cards. I do want all of these cards. I think we put Brainstorm on the bottom, then the Dress Down, and the Misstep. We're only going to get 2 of these, aren't we? Because we're going to have to crack a fetch to get rid of, to get the land to play the thing. But we don't have to do that until the last moment. Let's see how we do here. I'd like to not have to Daze here, but if our opponent plays something really scary, then we will have to. Like that Phyrexian rogue guy, Mercurial Spelldance, I think it is. I would Daze for that. Right, so we'll play out the Scalding Tarn, and then we'll pass. So we have a Brainstorm on top, so we're kind of incentivized to not crack the Scalding Tarn, but we'll see what our opponent does. Now, if our opponent gives us a really nice misstep target, then we'll take it. But otherwise, we're just going to try and smash this Dreadnought into play, because if they're on red-blue, they're not going to have any main deck removal that actually hits a Dreadnought, aside from a one-of Brazen Borrower. So if we can stick that in play, it should just outclass everything. Even a Murktide can't get to the massive heights of 12-12 in time. I think our opponent lost connection to the game briefly there. That's why their clock's ticking down. A Ponder. I don't think this is worth using a misstep on when our plan is to dress down. They did not shuffle the library. Tundra. Okay, so they're more on the control spectrum. Do we want this Brainstorm, or do we want to try and get the game over and done with? I think we need to pressure the game to be done here. Let's go basic island and cast dress down. Many Dazes. Let's crack this. Let's get another island. Just want to have all of our lands in a row before we start deploying this. Minor Misstep. I would like to counter your Minor Misstep with my Minor Misstep. Oh wow, this takes me back to the bad old days of Mental Misstep being legal in Legacy. Minor Misstep, not as good as Mental Misstep, but it's a pretty good card. Ooh, the old Desperation Brainstorm, is it? I'm going to say no to that one. We got 2 more Dazes in hand. I don't know how good they're going to be for the rest of this game. So firing off and stopping their Brainstorm there was a guaranteed way of stopping them digging. Whereas if I try and fight over the 1 mana answer they have, it's going to be very challenging. Would you like your Ponder or your Brainstorm back, opponent? The Brainstorm, sure. We can tap out for something like a Minsk and Boo here. Alright, they're not doing that. We're getting a turn by the looks of things. A Dress Down. A Dress Down of their very own. Okay. That's pretty weird to me that they would play that there. That could just open up us getting another Dreadnought. Very strange play. So we got Slip out the back to dodge removal if we need to. They were just doing that to cantrip, but I think you have to do that end of turn. Do we let them Brainstorm this time? I think so. We've got a Slip out the back now as a little bit of extra defense for our guy. And a few Dazes to fight with. So I'm liking the spot we're in. But if our opponent does remove this, we'll have to jump a Borrower into play. But a Terminus. Interesting. Are they going to pay the miracle cost of their Terminus? I would like to slip out the back from this Terminus, please. No Terminus for you. Oh, that felt real good. I really enjoyed that one. A Ponder. Sure, we're not fighting over that because they've got enough mana to pay for Daze. But we want our opponent to cantrip a little bit so that they are lower on resources. Expressive Iteration. I think we let that go because we just need to stop them killing the Dreadnought on our turn when it comes back. Alright. We slipped out the back and got a little cheeky win there. Alright, let's see what the sideboard holds for us. Our opponent was running Dress Down. Now that might just be a controlling thing, or they might be some sort of Dreadnought deck themselves. They definitely gave me the impression that I want these missteps. I don't think we want to be fighting 2-for-1s here. So I think we want the missteps in. I think we want Hydroblast because they'll counter Expressive Iteration and Minsk and Boo. Pithing Needle on Minsk and Boo is probably going to be pretty useful here. Probably more so than an Aether Spellbomb. Other than that, I think this is fine. So we'll just submit like this and try and temper them. Item Ponder, we have our combo, we just need 1 more mana for it, so we can keep this. Obviously our combo is going to be much harder to land. Well, our opponent had a lot of removal and we managed to get around it. But it doesn't get easier post-board. They're probably going to have 4 Prismatic Endings in their deck as well as a bunch of plows and all sorts. So let's see how we do. Basic Island, big fan of that one. Do we misstep this turn or do we ponder? Sorry, do we misstep or ponder? Because we kind of know what we're pondering for anyway. We kind of have the things we would ponder for in this situation anyway. So I think we're just going to hold up the misstep in case something bizarre happens. And then next turn we can ponder, because we're not playing the Dreadnought next turn yet anyway. So next turn we ponder and hold up misstep. The one thing that punishes us is if there was a... what's it called? Dress Down near the top of our library. What we can do here is we can just play an Urza Saga game for a little bit. Urza Saga, pretty good against control decks. Now, our opponent's deck is 3 colours, I think. No, we saw green as well, didn't we? I'm pretty sure we saw a trop. Should have been paying slightly more attention. But it's a late night. Yeah, there we go. I did see green the last one. I knew I saw green. Sure. So now we have this Urza Saga. Just let us tick up. Just make some guys. Force our opponent to do stuff about them. We've got an uncounterable Pithing Needle next turn for Minsk and Boo. I think we let that Brainstorm go. Our missteps are going to be more protecting us from kill spells and stopping our opponent's growth because they've already got 3 lands in play and 3 of their colours. So they're going to be able to navigate relatively well for this game anyway. Ooh, Mystic Sanctuary. It's not a bad place to see it, tapped like that. Another Ponder. They're thinking about it. They didn't fancy it. So we've seen Dress Down from our opponent. But if they dress down our Urza Saga tokens, we get to make a Dreadnought. Another threat is the sort of thing we want to see here. Do we want Pithing Needle for Minsk and Boo? Or do we want Soul Red Lantern? I think we want Pithing Needle for Minsk and Boo. It's going to be a difficult one for us to beat, Minsk and Boo. So not having an island here is pretty bad news for us. But if I dress down here, we just make a Brainstorm. A Terminus. Yeah, I suppose so. You can Terminus. A little bit sad. It doesn't matter on the order because they're not actually going to our library, they're just going to exile. I was hoping for the dress down so we could deploy a Dreadnought, but it was not the case. I wouldn't be surprised if our opponents boarded out their dress downs in this game because we're playing them to actually help us, so they really don't want them. Although Urza Saga is something that maybe makes you want to keep them in because it can stop them from just overrunning you that way. An Uro. Okay. I wish I got the Soul Guide Lantern now. Isn't that the way? So I don't have a second green yet. They didn't draw a land off of that. A Ponder. They must have drawn that Ponder, because otherwise you Ponder first so that you're more likely to hit a land drop to put in with Uro. Over to us, is it? Phyrexian Dreadnought, you say? Let's Brainstorm, because we can always shuffle them away with Ponder if we don't like what we find. Another Urza Saga I would like. I guess we don't need all these Dreadnoughts, but we don't really have a choice about them, do we? So I guess we play this Urza Saga out. So we have 2 blue mana available here. So I guess we can Ponder and shuffle away the 2 Dreadnoughts we don't want. Any order, shuffle. And we drew a Wasteland. It's not great, but we can certainly use it in the future. We can copy our Pithing Needle, but it doesn't do anything. It won't get the as it comes into play part of it. We are currently holding up Minor Misstep here, but we're doing it via colourless sources, so we might be able to trick our opponent a little bit. Obviously, if they have a Wasteland... Okay, that's not a Wasteland. Maybe we're supposed to Wasteland our opponent off of green, but if they have a fetch land for any green, then we got nothing there. Alright, this is probably going to beat us, I'd imagine. Uro. Pretty good card. Yeah. So we chose to play around Minsk and Boo rather than Uro. And we got a little punished. To be fair, when we got the Pithing Needle out, they did some cantrips and stuff after it anyway, so they didn't have a graveyard that was that full at the time. A Dreadnought that we tried to throw away a minute ago. So we can start Wastelanding our opponent here. And that's probably where we're at. I think we'll take them off of red so they can't cast Expressive Iteration. We can make a small Murktide Regent, but I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think we just hold up the Misstep and make a construct token which we can use to protect our life if we want to. But if we make enough of them, we might be able to do a double block here later on. And then we can Soul Guide Lantern it out of play. That's a plan, at least. Tap it with these manas. Make a rubbish guy. Untap. Draw for turn. We can make a 12/12 if we want to. I think we're just going to make a guy here. And this time we get a Soul Guide Lantern. She should have got the first time around. Let's get rid of the Brainstorm. So we have a choice here. Do we play out an island? Or do we Wasteland our opponent's red source? I think we Wasteland our opponent's red source here. And now we can double block the Uro and Soul Guide Lantern it away. And then hopefully, if they have a removal try and blow us out, we can misstep it and blow them out. But they do have a full grip of cards because, you know, Uro's been doing its thing. God, 31 life. That's like 3 attacks in Dreadnought. Let's see how we go here. Got second plow. That was certainly one of the possibilities here. But maybe we've whittled down our opponent's resources enough that we can land something scary. A Brazen Borrower. That's actually pretty handy in this spot. I think we're going to start off with a Brainstorm. That's the done thing, isn't it? Okay, I like a whole bunch of these things. I don't think we need the Murktide just yet. And the Dress Down is probably a slightly later plan. Oh, actually no, it's the Shadowspear, isn't it? It's the later of these plans. We can play this out. And I think our plan is to bounce the Uro in their upkeep. Petty Theft on this, please. I don't like where this appears to be going. This feels like a hard cast Force of Will. It could just be a Brainstorm looking for an answer though. Ah, Pyroblast. That's something that we can interact with. No thank you, Pyroblast. These minor missteps, sorry, have been pretty handy. Okay, so we're getting a force pitching expressive iteration. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we're trying to untap, dress down, make... So we're going to make a giant... Do we make the Murktide to check the Uro? Or do we... I think we might make the Murktide to check the Uro and then see what our opponent does. So we can cast this for blue, blue, and 1, 2, 3, 5. To make the biggest one we can. So this can check the Uro. The Uro can attack into it and we can Soul Guide Lantern it away. Now, they might have just found another Uro since then, but just a plow. Feels like a plow. Prismatic Ending on Pithing Needle. Not a fan of that one. That means Minskamboo is coming along. So at least we did have the thing that was trying to play around it, but a bit awkward. A red Elemental Blast on our guy as well. Sure. Not looking great. So our plan is to now make 2 Phyrexian Dreadnoughts and hope that our opponent has run out of removal, which is not necessarily that likely considering they've been drawing loads of extra cards because Uro does a lot of work. Can we have a dress down, please? We can have a dress down. Okay, we've got a Murktide, which we can make, but it won't be very big. Okay, so we can play a Dreadnought. We can play a Dreadnought. And we pass the turn. So we can make a third one. So we can make lethal damage in our opponent's end step if we want to. And if they try and wrath us, we can slip out the back. So we've got options. So the thing I'm worried about here is our opponent playing Minskamboo. I think we have to let this go, because if they play Minskamboo, we can phase out the creature they're going to sacrifice to Minskamboo. And then we can just sail across, kill the boo. Or whatever. Okay, now we have to do this. Let's slip out the back. They still have the mana for Minskamboo, although we are on a life total where they get to kill us here. Yeah, we'll concede the game. Right, our opponent had an Uro on line too long. We got the thing to stop the one thing when their graveyard was relatively empty, and then they had the other thing. So sometimes they're going to get you that way. Do you want Aether Spellbomb in for those situations? I don't think so. I think we just submit. And our deck is significantly better on the play than it is on the draw. So I think we will. Opening hand doesn't really do that much. I think we should mulligan this. Alright, we got Ponder. We've got Slip Out the Back for turn 2. I think this is fine. We'll keep this. One of these things has to go. It's probably the dress down based on where our hand is right now. So we'll start with Polluted Delta, Island, Ponder. What do we have here? Stifle is pretty good. Island is also pretty good. And so is Ponder. So I guess we want a selection of these things. So we'll put the Ponder on bottom, then the Stifle, then the Island. So what we can do is we don't have to slip out the back straight away. We can do a Stifle Knot next turn instead. A good old-fashioned Stifle Knot with a Daze backup. So I think that's what we're going to do. Let's make the guy. Stifle his trigger, like the good old days. And then pass the turn. So this could get Prismatic Ending, which is one of the reasons I was thinking maybe we wait another turn for slip out the back. It's going to be a plow, and a turn plow. They shouldn't. They should wait till their turn. A Brainstorm. Is this the one we Daze? It's not a very strong Brainstorm. I think we just let them have this Brainstorm. It's a very weak Brainstorm because they're going to have to draw one of the cards they put back. It's just rearranging their hand pretty much. So when this fails in a second, then we Ponder. I have to imagine our opponent has a removal spell. So is this worth dazing when our opponent can pay? I don't think it is. So that's a bit of a tilter. And a Ponder? Sure. So we have a Ponder to try and find some more action. So maybe we should have waited another turn to slip out the back there. But the only problem is the more mana our opponent gets, the harder it's going to be for us to resolve or do anything because they can have multiple lines of interaction. Removal's too good, basically, is the over-under on that. Okay, let's Ponder. Find something good. I don't think this counts as anything good, so let's shuffle. Mycosynth Gardens. Not great. So we're on hardcast Daze territory. So we can hardcast a Daze on an expressive iteration if they cast one this turn, which I think is definitely worth doing. We've got 7 cards in hand. This is so unreasonable. I would not like you to have an expressive iteration, please. Okay, they weren't using it for lands, which is sad. We're going to get jammed up by a bunch of Pyroblasts and things. Let's cast this guy. Copy it. Then let's slip out the back. This can be Pyroblasted. Let's get in a Force of Will. Would I rather have my tapped or untapped one? I think I'd rather have my untapped one in case he gets bounced for some reason. Or if they have someone like the Wandering Emperor. So next turn we can make another one, but again our opponent has just got a deck full of removal and card draw. So they pitched an Uro. Okay, they're brainstorming, so they're probably looking for an answer. Or they already have one and they're just trying to work out the best way of navigating their turn here. Now, our problem with Phyrexian Dreadnought is white removal exists. Carpet of Flowers. Okay, that's pretty good for... We only have islands, so... They're probably going to the second main, and then they're going to add mana. So they might be doing a Minsk and Boo this turn. But they're not attacking with it. 2 white mana. Okay, we're just getting ploughed. Sure. Yikes. Now we draw it. Sure. 2 red to your mana pool. Minsk and Boo. Sure. I detest Minsk and Boo as a Magic card, to be honest. I just think it's a really ugly, horrible design of a card. Like, it's pretty powerful and it ends the game quickly, but it's just an incredibly dull design, I think. Right, so we have a Polluted Delta. We can't go and find a thing. Maybe we're supposed to keep that for a Brainstorm, actually. Although we already have this Misstep to put back, because that's not really getting any better, is it? Okay, so our opponent's got a lot of life to work through, but... So they're probably just going to smash us for 4, and then sacrifice their Boo to draw 4 cards, and then our game is probably done then. Yeah, like some Wastelands could have maybe prevented some of this a little bit, but Carpet of Flowers does stop that. Right, so we're going to take a hit here. So got 2 blue in their pool. Yep, so they sacrifice a creature to draw a bunch of cards. We can't do anything about that. Our opponent definitely has enough time to win the game just because Minsk and Boo does that. If we can play a Pithing Needle or something, then maybe we can get around the Minsk and Boo. But it's only a matter of time before they find an Uro. There you go, there's one. So this deck that I'm playing against here is known as Hot Bant. And it has Wastelands in it despite being a 4-colour deck. Which is something that bothers me a little bit sometimes in Magic. I think we need more, like, good land destruction. Keep people honest. Maybe Back to Basics should be in our deck. Maybe that would have been an interesting thing we could have played with. But there's not a lot of these control decks around at the moment because they're not very good, because the initiative just smashes them up. So I didn't really want to gear my sideboard to that, and I think the slots that it would go in are probably the Torpor Orb slots. So I didn't think that was probably worth doing. This game is most likely over. I don't know why our opponent's taking so long to go through the motions, but here we are. Sure. So there's your Uro. Can't do anything about that. We have a Daze in the late game now, so that's not going to do anything. Yep, coming in for 4. Our life total is going to be 27 soon. A Murktide Regent. This is a real card. It's been a little while. Alright, I'm going to crack this. Just get an iron and play. And then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got a Daze, which isn't going to do anything, but we also have a Minor Misstep, which can hopefully do something. This can roadblock both of these guys, potentially, but they can attack with both guys. I block one, and then they throw the other one out and draw a bunch of cards. So it's going to be difficult to do much for this. I think we have to not block here, which sounds pretty crazy, but they're attacking with just the Uro. I guess they want to sack the Boo to get the cards, but I can't block here. I've got to play around the on-board stuff, but they also have 7 cards in hand, so they're going to kill this any second now, I'm sure. Okay, they're just pumping this, so next turn it's still not going to be big enough, actually. So Ponder. The thing we're trying to counter with our Minor Misstep at this point is something like a plough on our Murktide. A Wasteland. Not looking special right now. Okay, I think we have to kill the Minsk and Boo. That's kind of step 1 here. I don't think there's much point wastelanding here, right? They have Carpet of Flowers and all sorts. Maybe we're supposed to keep the Wasteland for Brainstorm. So we're going to take a big hit here. But next turn we hold back our Murktide and blocks. If they have another Minsk and Boo, we die. Okay, putting a plough on top of their library. So our Murktide is looking like it's going to get killed pretty soon. Getting a whole bunch of mana here. A Ponder. So we have the Misstep to the plough here. Is that going to resolve? I don't think so. They're just going to Force of Will it, I would imagine. The amount of cards they've seen in this game. They've gone through half of their deck now. And we've still got... We were on 42 cards left in our library and our opponent's got 29. That basically shows you exactly how this game has gone. Well, they're going to clean up rather than ploughing in their turn. That's wild to me. Alright, we just have to pass the turn. We have to block the Boo. And then we have to try and block the Uro next turn. Not a great position. There's literally no point using this Wasteland for anything. Alright. We would like to misstep this plow, please. We would like to misstep this plow, please. They have a misstep as well. Sure. So we're not dead this turn. We're only taking 13. Mycosynth Gardens, when it becomes something, is tapped, so it's not going to be useful to make a blocker here. We pretty much need to draw... What do we need here? See, look, a Wasteland in a 4-colour deck. Disgusting. So we need to draw a Brainstorm. A Stifle. That doesn't really do it. I think we can call it there. They're not going to time out with 4 minutes, even though they've been playing quite slowly. Yikes. Yeah, so that was... I think where that round got lost, there's two different ways. So the first one was we could have got the Soulguide Lantern to stop an Uro. Now, at the time, our opponent's graveyard didn't have that many cards in, and we hadn't seen the Uro yet. So it wasn't like we could just catch it in the graveyard immediately. We'd have to just have it in play to exile everything later. So we could have done that. We got the Pithing Needle because our opponent was approaching 4 mana. They could have had a Minsk and Boo. So we went for that line, and they had the other line, and just run, and then Uro ran the game. This last game, we could have waited one more turn to have the step out the back to protect our guy. But as we saw, our opponent, their deck is literally just removal spells and card advantage. This matchup is, if we don't win it by like turn 4, it's probably done. So this is the sort of deck that this hot band deck is very good against. And we just got really bodied by it. But if we'd have got the Soulguide Lantern instead of the Pithing Needle, we might have been able to win that second game. So I think it was relatively close. Like it's a 1-2, and it kind of looks and felt like it was a 1-2 there. All right, let's go on to the final round, I think, to see if we can get a 3-2. On the play for the final round, not a bad place to be. We have Island Ponder. We might be able to just double Wasteland our opponent into the dirt. I don't mind that. I think we will keep this. I don't even know if we have to ponder on the turn 1. I think we might just hold open the misstep. We want to catch our opponent's turn 1 play. An island. Okay, Wasteland's looking less good. And now we have a Force of Will. I think this is the turn we ponder because we can find another island here. Our opponent is brainstorming in response. Turn 1 brainstorm like that. Not a big fan of that myself. I think we any order these. A Murktide. Not really where we want to be. Brainstorm. I think we will fire off the Soulguide Lantern now. We have the ability to stop our opponent from... Like, they could be the reanimated deck, the blue-black reanimated deck. And we can't hold up anything with this Wasteland, and they'll get to use the mana before we Wasteland it, so we may as well play out the Lantern. Stand still. I think we'll counter this. Interesting. If we had an Urza Saga, then we probably just let that happen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we don't have enough here, so we're just holding up. These Wastelands looking pretty bad right now. Okay, they're looking slightly better. You've got Stifle for this. A Timeless Dragon. So this is Shark still we're playing against here. So our Wastelands will do something here. We're in a bit of a bind here. We could try and draw a card and make a Murktide, but I think we just have to pass. Like, we want to stop this Timeless Dragon. A basic plains. Sure. A basic island. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I think we are exiling our opponent's graveyard. And then we are casting this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll hold up this Wasteland. Counter spell. Good old-fashioned counter spell. Maybe we're supposed to play that first, but we were exiling the Soulguide Lantern, so we don't have to tap our Wasteland. Prismatic Vista. That's not going to give us a Wastelandable target. Sure, you can have a standstill. So an Urza Saga would be a lovely draw on our part. So we can either crack this immediately, or we can wait for our opponent to draw up. I'm just going to crack it immediately, I think. If we just let our opponent make land drops, then it's going to go really badly for us, is how this game works. We don't... we're keeping this up this turn, so we don't need to slip out the back. We don't need the second Murktide. And we'll play this Urza Saga. So we're holding up Minor Misstep and Force of Will, and we're just going to play a good old-fashioned Urza Saga game. Now, this matchup's probably pretty horrible because it's one of these slow, grindy control decks, which is not really where we want to be. We're sort of quite kitted out for beating the combo decks, which are one of the big sections of the field right now. You've got like Delver and Initiative, which make up about 40-odd%. And then you've got Combo, which makes up probably another 40%. And then you've sort of got like other bits and pieces. I don't want to play against the Fairy. Let's just get rid of the Misstep here. Now they can probably force back if they want to, but no. I imagine this is not getting a Tundra. There we go. Another island. Ponder. A currency converter. Sure. So this just gets them double value when they have Shark Typhoon. So now we're drawing this Murktide Regent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can play a Murktide Regent, or we can just make some Urza Saga. I think we need to grind the value out of our Sagas here. So we'll get an Urza Saga token this turn and next turn. And then what are we getting? Narset. This isn't Narset for a combo. This is just Narset as a good card that has some nice text on it, as well as being like a dig through time. Prismatic Ending. Let's make one of these. Let's untap. Make one of these. So dress down. A Shark Typhoon. Sure. So they're doing this so they can make a guy before we can get Pithing Needle for Shark Typhoon, if that's the thing we wanted to do. So we have choices here. I think we'll just get a Phyrexian Dreadnought and blink it. Although we know they've got a Prismatic Ending in hand. So it's kind of like a bit annoying. But maybe we can overload them. Or we can get an Aether Spellbomb. We don't have a Pithing Needle main deck anyway. So we could get an Aether Spellbomb to bounce rogues, or we could just get this Dreadnought. Let's just get a Dreadnought. Our opponent's tapped out. If they want a Force of Will list, then let them. Means we can't attack with our construct tokens this turn because I don't really want to trade one for a rogue. We can now jam another Murktide when the time comes that our opponent's deck has a Terminus or a Supreme Verdict in it. Possibly two. Now, one thing that is important is the clock in this matchup. So I need to play the clock a bit faster because our opponent is quite likely to time out in this one because that's kind of what Sharksteel does. It doesn't really win the game. I do like the Sharksteel deck though. I think it's cool. It's a control deck that's playing relatively fairly. It's not playing 4 colours with Wastelands and things. So we know they have a Prismatic Ending. They might have a Swords as well. We're losing our 13-13. Sure. Brazen Borrower, cast it on the sky. Oh no. Petty Theft. Say no to this token. Not a very exciting play there. Force of Negation. Interesting. We're going to attack the Narset so that if we draw Brainstorms and Ponders, we get to cast them. Now, they could kill both of our guys here, but they'll be using a Plow on a Construct token that we got free from our Urza Saga. A Mystic Sanctuary. Okay. So this is probably putting... Is that Ponder they've targeted there? I think that's a Ponder. So they can trade their guy for our guy. We get to take out the Narset now. And next turn we'll make a Murktide. There's a Prismatic Ending that we knew about. And then we're probably going to see the Ponder we knew about. So we'll just F6 for our opponent's turn and get them to start burning their clock a bit more. Scalding Tarn. I don't know how many Mystic Sanctuaries are in our opponent's deck. A Standstill. Okay. I think we just pop it now. If we find a land off this Ponder, we get to cast a Murktide. It's just no point just sitting behind this Standstill. Okay, they're cracking their fetch. They're going to misstep this. They're not. Okay, so like this Force of Will, this Brainstorm, and this Island. Not shuffle. We'll play this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're going to leave the Ponder in there in case of Mystic Sanctuary, as well as if we play another Murktide, we want it to at least have some counters on it. I imagine this resolves and just gets removed because their deck's full of removal. Converting their currency. What are they putting underneath it? Prismatic Ending. A Caracas. Okay. That's fine. Supreme Verdict. Sure. And a Standstill. Alright. Keep doing the plan. Just let you have all your standstills. A Dreadnought and a Slip out the back. With Force of Will Murktide potentially. Sure. Cast this Dreadnought. Force of Will pitching counterspell. Alright. So we have Murktide with Slip out the back next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. So we have Murktide with a little bit of longevity to it. Now, we still have 30 life here, so our opponent's got a long way to go. So we can Wasteland their Karakas first to pinch them on white mana. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's the same as tapping it there. And we pass a 10. We can't F6 because we have the slip out the back in hand. What is this nonsense? Is it going to be a big shark, is it? Sure. I don't know how big a shark it is. A 6/6. Okay, that is bigger than what we've got going on. So we can block and then pump our... and then slip out the back with our Murktide if we want to. But our opponent is in a bit of a pickle in terms of attacking. Okay, so now we slip out the back and F6. Okay, the attack with a shark makes me think they have another shark token. So they got 5, 6, 7, 8. So they can make a 6/6 shark, which will trade with our Murktide. Is that something we want to do? Or we can hold back and block the rogue and just waste our opponent's time a little bit. A green mana? What is that for? No idea what that's for. Must be a new innovation on the deck. So they've now sort of entered the end stage of their engine where they're making guys all the time. But we can block this 6/6 this 5/5 shark. Or we're about to get plowed. Sure. Okay. So our opponent's probably going to win this one, but we may as well let them burn their clock down a little bit because this game is probably going to go on for a long time because we've got 2 more games to play potentially. We'll play this out and pass. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they have lethal. Turn them sideways. Then we die. Sure, so it's another matchup that's going to be a real pain. So we're going to want these missteps. I think we want to keep the Aether Spellbomb. The Pithing Needle has some targets. They've got planeswalkers and things. I don't mind having those. Saga Lantern has a bit of text here. Shadowspear is unlikely to matter that much, to be honest. I think we can probably get rid of that one. I like Stifles here. Kind of tempted to board out of the Wasteland, but maybe we're getting a spot where we can just cheese our opponent a little bit. I think the Force of Wills here are fine. Maybe they could be Force of Negations instead. I like Borrowers here. Dress down. Daze is kind of the weak link, I think, here. Let's get rid of Daze. I think trying to Daze all their 1-mana spells is a bit futile. Alright. What are they running green for? I wonder. That's what his hand do. His hand is pretty slow. I think we mulligan this one. Alright, we got Ponder here. We can keep this. We have one of the pieces we want. We got a lot of Brainstorm. I don't think we need them all. So let's just Island Ponder. Magic was intended to be played. Let's see what we got. Dress down and Minor Misstep. I like the Misstep a little bit, but not... I think we can just any order than shuffle here. We're looking for a threat. Okay, this Wasteland could be useful if our opponent has to fetch a non-basic or only has a Tundra or something in their hand. Okay, they've got a Prismatic. It's very unlikely to catch them with a Wasteland here. So our next turn is probably going to be Brainstorm, Fetch Land. But we don't have like a 1-drop threat we can play after it. But we might as well get our Brainstorm off before our opponent untaps. Oh, this changes things. I think we just play out our Urza Saga here. I think just making tokens is going to be better than just trying to get a single guy out of it. I don't really care about the currency converter, I don't think. It's not really what this game's about. I think we'll play the Wasteland out here because I don't want to use my Rainforest until I can Brainstorm. Which does mean we don't have an emergency Brainstorm into Misstep line. But we have a Force of Will for emergencies. Okay, Hall of Helios Generosity. That is going to get eat a Wasteland very soon. But first, we will make a Saga. And make a Saga. Looks like we're getting Dressed Down here, which we can use to get a free Dreadnought if they do it now. Or they're just fetching around Pithing Needle, maybe. We'll get this Pithing Needle. Currency converter. Stop that shenanigans from happening. Play this out. We can play out a Saga Lantern and bash for 4. I think that's probably a good thing for us to do here. Every point of damage is going to matter. Goodbye Ponder. No, putting that on top with Mystic Sanctuary. Let's attack. See if we can get some damage across. It's just a little measly shark. Just got to be pretty quick about passing turns, so their clock burns off faster than ours. Is this a chump blocking shark? Feels like they're going to be doing something to our Pithing Needle in the very near future. And there's a Saga. Okay, so giving us multiple things we want to Wasteland. That's smart. Right, let's brainstorm. Looking for another Wasteland would be good. Did not find another Wasteland. Got these dress downs. We want one of these lands, I guess. I guess we put dress down on top. And then this island. We play out our island. It attacks. It's another shark, is it? Not very exciting. But it does draw them cards. We're not going to bounce this. We'll Wasteland their Saga now, though. This Hall of Heliod isn't doing anything while these are under the currency converter, and they can't shift them until they get rid of our Pithing Needle. But if they're getting rid of that, they're not getting rid of our guys here. I think I'm actually going to misstep this and stop our opponent's development. Just a nice tempo play here. A Veil of Summer. Yuck. How do I feel about Veil of Summer? Is this worth forcing? I don't think so. We want to hold the force for the Terminus that's most likely coming. At least we found out what the green's for. Weird to splash that for that when the whole idea of the deck is that it plays loads of stuff that don't counter spells on the stack. Or do they miss a land drop there? They Brainstorm locked. That's pretty tasty for us. Okay, so there's this land that we knew about. Obviously our dress down is pretty bad in the face of our own guys here. A Ponder. We can let them have a Ponder. They're pretty pinched on mana here. They're probably going to have to shuffle this. Another Ponder. Sure. Plains. They're going to plow one of our guys. I think we will try and counter this. We can also make the Borrower so we have lethal damage here. Okay. So we got game 2. Daze is definitely bad here. Shadowspear isn't something we want in this matchup, I don't think. Although we can use that to sort of drag the game out. But I'm not really sure that's going to be worth doing. We could play Gilded Drakes to steal big sharks to waste their time a little bit. Which is kind of funny. Maybe that's the best way of dragging this one out. I don't know. And what would I cut if I want these Gilded Drakes? Will I just cut some Ponders so I just have more action here? Maybe. I'm only boarding this in because I think this game is going to go super duper long. Okay, so our hand is very good against Standstill. I think we keep this one. We just play an Urza Saga game from the off. Opponents, no Ponder on turn 1 from our opponent. They did keep 7 though. Oh, we have a Stifle. We might be able to get cheeky here. Because we've got all these dress downs if we ever want to make a Dreadnought. Oh, they're not giving us the opportunity. There's our Saga. What is this going to be? A Spreading Seas. Targeting their own island. That's so weird to me. Sure. That's a really peculiar one. Presumably it's some cool tech for something. I guess you can use it a bit like a cantripping Wasteland if you only care about the abilities of a Saga. Interesting. We just play out this island and pass. Spreading Seas on their own island. Interesting. So we're just trying to run it as a Saga game here. Hall of Heliod Generosity. A Teferi. Sure. We'll make a guy in response. And a Ponder from our opponent. We get to kill the Teferi here. Attack Teferi. And I guess we play out a Saga here. We get an end step. What are we getting rid of here? Genuinely a bit tricky. Probably a dress down. Right. A nice Wasteland target for us. I'm not going to take the 1 damage here in case our opponent does anything that makes me want to mess with this. What is this? A Shark Typhoon. So how big is this going to be? It's going to be a 2/2 Shark. Okay, so we're probably going to make a construct now. So if they want to block, they'll have to trade. I think the situations where they don't trade there are way scarier than the ones where they do. Right, an island, Prismatic Vista. There's a prismatic ending on our little construct. Sure. Make a guy. We'll go and get ourselves a Starlight Lantern here. We'll get rid of the Shark Typhoons. They can't recur it with Hall of Heliod. If they want to, they have to put it on top now. It means our guy is just a measly 1/1, unfortunately. Would I rather have a Stifle in play right now, or would I rather Wasteland our opponent off of their Hall of Heliod? I think I'd rather have an Urza Saga in play. So we've got a whole bunch of threats coming down the line here. We've got these Sagas, we've got this Murktide. We can stifle the Dreadnought trigger when it comes in. A Ponder, sure. Now we've still got this Brainstorm fetch land going on. We're just sort of riding the Saga train and our opponent has to react to it, which is pretty nice. That's why it's so brutal against these control decks. We lose in our construct? Be my guest. There's 2 more on the way. A currency converter, sure, I don't care about that. So we want to be doing this turn, which means we're probably just Wastelanding our opponent this turn. No, that's not true. We want to hold up our Stifle for the Dreadnought. So we'll hold up Stifle and Brainstorm. What are they discarding? A standstill. Sure. That's not a great situation for our opponent to be in right now. Scalding Tarn. We'll make one of these. A plow on this guy. Sure. Let's make a guy. Go and get ourselves a Dreadnought. Stifle the ability of the Dreadnought. We are cracking a fetch land. Then we get the Scalding Tarn. Crack it now. Get ourselves a basic island. So are we pondering here or are we brainstorming? I think we're pondering. Looking for disruption. Okay, they're making a 2-2. Ooh, these are all pretty good actually. I would like a Minor Misstep next turn. I don't think we need the Gilded Drake yet though. So I guess we put the Misstep and then the Gardens. The Gardens can become another Phyrexian Dreadnought, but I suspect our Phyrexian Dreadnought is going to get killed. There's a Brainstorm from our opponent. So we have the Wasteland if we want to get rid of the Trop, or we can use it to get rid of the Hall of Helios Generosity. But we don't really have any counter spells, so we don't really care about Veil of Summer right now. I guess we have the Misstep coming. Sure, so get rid of our guy. They're going to bash for 2. They do need to start getting some damage in on us. Makes sense to me. So I think we play out our Flooded Strand here. Cast this Murktide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. It's not the biggest, but it's big enough. Force of Will, pitching standstill. Okay, and cast a Brainstorm. We don't want this Mycosynth Gardens. Or we don't want the second Gilded Drake either. Crack this now. Go and get ourselves Mystic Sanctuary and put Brainstorm on top. Seems pretty good to me. And then we pass a turn. If our opponent cycles a shark, I guess we crack him with the Wasteland. If not, maybe we're supposed to crack and hit the Trop this turn, so our missteps work. But they only have one card in hand. I think looping sharks is probably what kills us here. Sure, you can attack with this little guy. The Brainstorm that we knew we were getting. Let's see what it does for us. Whole bunch of stuff. I guess we put Dress Down and then Gilded Drake. And we're probably looking at Murktide. Not very big, but it'll do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blue. Tap this. Shark. So now we hit the Hall of Heliod. We can't allow them to keep looping sharks. It's a 4-4, which is unfortunately the same size as our guy. I'm going to say no to this plow. Then we have to counter this. Probably using a misstep. Okay, they're not attacking, which is good because our clock has got a lot more time on it than theirs. A Gilded Drake. Sure, that's better than a shark. Sorry, the shark's better than the Drake. Give me your shark, please. And I think we're on the sitting back plan here. And I've got a lot of guys. I don't want to lose to that. We got a misstep and a Dress Down. Dress Down does kill our construct token, but that's not really a problem. If we can get a Brazen Borrower and bounce our Gilded Drake, that's going to feel real nice. But Dress Down. I think we just pass and hold up our things. We want to be able to block their rogue token, especially since we're probably going to cast one of these Dress Downs because we've got 2 of them now. Right, we've got some currency getting converted over there. What are they doing? It's a Narset. Interesting they didn't just cast a Narset. That feels like one that you want to cast. An Urza Saga, sure. So now we have a Dress Down to answer their Urza Sagas. We don't want to play this end of turn, I don't think. We just hold it up. A Force of Will. We're 1 mana shy of casting it, but I think we just sit back here. So they're probably going to currency convert again. Be my guess. That puts a bit of time into your thing. Okay, just making the token from it. Alrighty. A Brazen Borrower. Oh, I like this one. So I think we go to end step. Our opponent's end step, we're going to bounce our Gilded Drake. So we have the next shark covered. Weirdly, this is working out for us. You can make a construct. Cycling Timeless Dragon. Interesting. Going to be a nice one that we can steal with a Gilded Drake soon. I hope. Okay, so doing currency stuff, making a rogue. Go and get yourself nothing. Interesting. And they didn't make a token either. That's petty theft on this. Let me have my Drake back. No to your Veil of Summer. We're in an awkward spot where I don't really want to keep beating our opponent down. I think we just have to pass again, and then we'll make the Brazen Borrower. Our opponent's got 2 minutes. The way we lose this game is just getting a bit angsty with the attacks. Because they can't really clear these without clearing all of their guys as well. But if they nickel and dime us a little bit, and they might be able to finish off with the currency converter. We got a bunch of counter magic here. There's going to be a big shark. Sure. A big shark has been made. And another rogue. Sure. How big is the shark? A 2/2. That doesn't seem very big. Then we're going to make this dress down. We lose one of our guys, they lose one of their guys. It's kind of a wash. But it does let us play this Dreadnought next turn. Get the Gardens. Play the Dreadnought. I think we're just going to be swinging with the Dreadnought next turn is the plan. Or swinging with 2 Dreadnoughts. I'm playing it quite cagey, but it's the amount of time we have left on the round compared to them. I think this is just the safest way of winning this game. I think we will actually win this game before time goes down. We've got a Force of Will still. We've got to slip out the back. We've got a Drake. So it's going to be very hard for our opponent to overcome all of those things. So how's our little trample guy going to go? A Ponder, sure. So it's 10, 12. So they can block 12 and take 12. So I can force them into chumping with all of their guys next turn if they don't have a removal spell. And we've still got this slip out the back hiding away and this Gilded Drake. So it's going to be so hard for our opponent to kill us in 1 minute, 10 seconds. But I think we can kill them. Source to Plowshares on the Murktide. Interesting choice. In response, I would like to copy my Dreadnought. Okay, so now do I want this to resolve or not? I think we will slip out the back. All right. Yeah, so we're going to bash them with the 2/4/4 flyers and then the 24 power of trample. So we've got a 3/2 in the end. We worked for it hard against a matchup that didn't feel great, but that kind of shows you where control is at the moment. They didn't have an answer for our Urza Saga, which got so much value. Like, it killed their Teferi, they spent removal spells on the guys. I don't think they should have been spending those removal spells, to be honest. But they had to do a whole bunch of things just to sort of keep parity with Urza Saga. All right, let's have a little chat about the deck. So this deck felt pretty good to me. Like, we lost to the Hot Bant deck, which, to be honest, was always going to be beating us, right? Their deck is nothing but removal and card advantage, like all the way down. And their threats are card advantage that are also removal sometimes. Like Minsc and Boo is card advantage, beat down, and removal. Uro is life gain, beat down, and card draw. Oh, Minsc and Boo is also card draw as well. So the only threats they have are ones that draw them cards. So it's very hard for a deck like this to get them unless we can get underneath them quickly, which I think we did in one of the games. So there was that. And we lost to the Death Shadow, which is kind of doing a very similar thing to us. And we had one draw where we smashed them, one draw where they smashed us, and one draw that came down to one crucial turn where I needed them to not have something, and they did have something, and then they smashed us after that. So I think the deck was relatively close to a 4-1, and it did feel pretty good. I think we didn't have any issues with our colourless lands, as far as I could tell from that one. So that felt pretty nice. I think having the combo of Phyrexian Dreadnoughts as like a big guy and then also having the Murktides felt like a pretty nice combo. I didn't really miss having removal so much. It was just a case of the things we lost against had so much stuff going on. It was very difficult for us to beat them. I think things like pushing through all those removal spells is always going to be challenging. And I don't really think that... I think this deck, you can't build it in a way that it's just going to reliably beat the decks that are just full of card advantage and removal. We don't have like a 1-drop threat that we can protect. The best we can do is a 2-drop threat and then protect that. I think maybe I should have sideboarded differently against that deck. Sideboarded more like I sideboarded against Shark still, with the Force of Negations and stuff in. Maybe that would have been a smarter play and we could have taken that matchup down. But yeah, this deck feels legit. It feels like a real deck. We did a lot of cool stuff. We had a little bit of grinding sometimes from the Sagas. And we just had the let's make a massive guy that you can't deal with plan. And if you watch my channel, you know I normally like my big guys in 2020 form, but I'll settle for a 12-12 trampler. Misstep was excellent in this deck. So a deck like the Shadow deck I played last week had, or it might have been the week before now, it was playing like 2-drops like Strix and Doughty Voidwalker instead of the Murktides. So, and it didn't have Dazes, it had Missteps instead of Dazes. And I just never really got in a spot to play the Misstep because you want to put your guys down so you can tempo. But then how are you tempoing after that? You know what I mean? Because you've got to put your shields down for a turn to play this, or you wait a bit longer where your guy is less impactful. So I think you do need Daze and tempo decks. Now, what this deck does quite nicely is we have the tempo cards from the Daze, but then we do have the missteps. And the important thing about missteps is everyone wants to run the cheapest, most efficient removal possible. And misstep just hits that. It hits the prismatic endings. It hits the source to plowshares. So that's really quite potent. It hits fatal push in some of the decks that are running that. Not that there's that many of them. So that's pretty nice. Possibly Spell Pierce is something you could look at for this deck. That was always a good card back in the Rug Delver days. You could even run more Wastelands, perhaps. You could even just have more Wastelands in the sideboard. But I think this deck is legit, and I think it's one of the best places that I've played Mental Misstep. Sorry, not Mental Misstep, Minor Misstep. I think it's one of the best Minor Misstep decks I've played, because you're very specifically countering things with Minor Misstep. Like there's, you know, yeah, you can hit Ponders or whatever, and Pyroblast in a lot of matchups. But we, more so than other decks, do not want Source of Plowshares to resolve. And it's normally something that's really hard to Daze, but it's really easy, and it's really bad to Force of Will, because you don't want to 2-for-1 yourself unless it's going to be winning you the game. So the Misstep just lets you play the game for a little bit longer, which is all you need when you've got a 12-12, right? So I think Minor Misstep here looked very good. And it's a very easy way of filling up your graveyard, because you've got these cheap 1-mana cantrips. You've got 1-mana Minor Misstep. Now, we didn't play against Chalice. That's probably going to be somewhat troublesome, I would say. I don't think we could run something like a Haywire Might. If you wanted to, you could run this deck in other colours, though. So you could cut a bunch of islands. So you could cut 4 islands and run 4 Tundras, something like that. Change the mana base around, whatever. And you could run some Swords to Plowshares if you wanted actual removal, which also lets you have prismatic endings in the sideboard, or possibly in the main. Now, obviously, the list is quite tight, so where you fit those in becomes a little bit challenging. But I think this deck is pretty good, and I don't think it's like going to be breaking the meta or anything, but I think it's something you can take to a tournament and expect to do all right with. Like, it clearly has the ability to smash some people pretty hard, and it really leverages the way that Daze and Minor Misstep cover things quite nicely between them. So Daze covers the expensive spells that are going to get you, and then Minor Misstep counters the little ones. So if they're playing around Daze, they play right into Minor Misstep. If they don't play around Daze, then they play into Daze. So you kind of get them coming and going a bit there. So I think it's pretty good. Obviously, the sideboard was relatively thrown together. The Gilded Drakes randomly looked pretty good in that last round. Now, we were sort of like grinding a little bit of clock, but we were going to win that game with combat damage. We did play it slightly cagey, but we weren't just going to hold back forever. We were going to make our 24 power and then attack with it. So I think, in conclusion, you should play this deck if you like Phyrexian Dreadnoughts. It's probably the best Phyrexian Dreadnought list I've played so far on my channel. I think I've only played 3-ish. But yeah, it felt pretty strong and pretty fun. Alright, with that said and done, one last plug. Like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing, help me out, so please do them. And thank you for watching. Goodbye.